On today's Minute of the Apes, I look at Richard and I thought, sing me a song.
Say my name, say my name. My name is Cornelius, and this is my wife, Zira.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. I'm so excited because guess what?
It's Friday.
It is Friday. We are done with another week. We are at minute 20. Sean?
I think we have a ringtone for our phones now whenever Richard calls us.
So if you get to know Sean, you get to hear that he records little fun things for his... If you're his friend, his ringtones and whatnot. I'm sitting here before you came today, Richard, and I'm hoping Sean can pull this up quickly, but you sent across a text message. I'm going to assume that you were saying you were about to be here.
Uh-huh.
So I know, as a friend of Sean's, that he's told me that when I send things or when I call, it's the Batman theme.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting around and we're waiting on Richard. I'm setting up audio gear and I suddenly hear this.
Text from Richard.
And you just kind of, it's part of being Sean Jackson's world. However, now I know that will never happen again because it's going to be going, say my name, say my name.
I didn't know it's you. Yeah.
My name is Cornelius. This is my wife, Zira. I'm going to be singing that for the rest of the day. It is stuck in my mind. Okay. So it's Friday. We're on to minute 20, Sean.
All right,
what's going on?
Start minute 20 with Todd having to do a lot of editing before this, and then we're going to say the chimps. We're going to start with the chimps deciding if they're going to give their names, and ends with Zira saying that she likes Dickson.
I think I just turned into a 13-year-old boy. That made me giggle so much.
How do you feel about Dix?
So many edits.
Okay, so here we come with the Dickson focus moment of minute 20.
Do you, have a name?
My name is Cornelius. This is my wife, Sarah.
And I'm Louis. Louis Dickson. Nobody's going to believe this.
Believe what?
Well, the primitive apes can talk.
Primitive?
Well, I mean that in our primitive civilization, apes just don't talk. I mean, I think it's important that when our primitive security precautions are lifted, that the first time you say anything in public, you should talk to what we primitively call the right people.
May I say something personal?
Please.
I like you.
As of minute 20, we have a planet's worth of humans, plus 2 living apes, 1 dead ape, and a lot of Dickson.
Are we going to make it through? Are we going to make it through this episode? It's going to be nothing but Dickson jokes, isn't it?
They say primitive in this minute a whole fucking lot, don't they?
They do. So now, in the moment where we've kind of discussed that this moment might resonate better, later moved into it, we do have the characters at least reacting. They're what's happened has at least left them fluxed a bit.
We're really actually having the first real interactions between humans and chimpanzees.
Yes, fair.
And they're having a conversation.
Right.
They're not
As
just
equals, yeah.
They're
I think what the moment does nicely is at least Milo's death has kind of quieted the moment and left them to talk. And to your point,
Right.
I don't think you can do this talk without something that shifts the tone down where we're just now communicating with each other. So why don't you read to us their conversation? I know we play the minute, but as we said, we always edit the minute in, and I really like that where we set the stage of what's been said.
Well, they mention their names back and forth, and Lewis kind of almost to the air says nobody's going to believe it.
Yeah, to which I think, could you not film this? Can you not record any of this stuff? Of course, I'll believe if they could see it.
But he's talking to himself, right? He's not talking to the 2 people that are talking to him. It was just kind of this.
He's talking out loud. He's doing his internal monologue out loud.
But at least Cornelius to say, believe what? And Lewis says that primitive apes can talk, right? The fact that they're wearing clothing and standing upright wasn't any indication to the psychiatrist that they might actually be something more than primitive apes.
Teacher,
and flew a spaceship.
I'm raising my hand real quick, teacher. What's the difference between primitive apes and current apes? Aren't they just all apes at this point? Did we see some sort of evolution from 20,000 years ago to today between ape interactions?
So, student Sean, I'd like to tell you, you're right. Go to the back of the classroom for disrupting the class. You're absolutely right. But at the same time, I think you have to throw in primitive for the audience so we can establish that in our world, you're reiterating again that in their world, apes don't do this.
Yeah.
They're primitive. Our apes are primitive, so they're just truncating that little thought down.
Okay.
It was what kind of looking at the moment on the screen. It was just Dr. Dickson's kind of just incredulous, like laughter, like maybe I've gone crazy. His reaction is just a little laughter. So
I do think he does a good job with that, though. When he talks about primitive apes, there's a stammer. That's kind of I can't remember exactly how it's delivered, but it's kind of primitive apes don't talk. Just don't talk. There's that true realization of I'm trying to vomit out the information I know in the world. So he does a good job with it.
Well, it's the way that Zero responds to his laughter by going primitive.
Yeah.
That what? That actually makes him realize that he's got to talk to them now. Like he's got to talk to them almost not as normal, but just kind of stammers over his moments.
I never thought about that, but Zero doing that does challenge him to kind of stop his conventions of this isn't what I expect, and it's just I'm going to speak to you one-on-one.
So now I've got to explain what I meant. I've got to kind of stumble over this. I mean that in our primitive civilization, apes just don't talk. So he tried to cover his tracks, right? I mean, I think it's important that when our primitive security precautions are lifted, the first time you say something in public, you should talk to what we primitively call the right people.
Quit saying primitive.
Well, it's meant to bring the comedy, right?
You know what it's
supposed to be funny.
He learned the word primitive today,
right.
and he's now trying to use it in conversation anytime he can.
It was on his calendar.
Word of the day calendar. So primitive is the word I'm going to fit in conversation.
It's humor, but he's having to talk to them now.
But his entire speech also shows the antiquated nature of their belief system and as a whole. Mm-hmm. And I think that for the first time, we're really getting back into it's like an open door to the race relation type stuff we had in the first film. When the primitive nature of the apes is the human nature of the first one.
Yeah.
And I think that they're opening that door again. Now you've got it. You can't do that. Well, I can. Yes, I can. And I think they're at least exploring themes that were there in the first one and were missing within the second.
Do you think that this movie, in some ways, much like The Force Awakens, was a little bit of a soft reboot where they are kind of just reversing the first movie of having a human come in to an advanced alien or ape civilization? Now we're having apes come in to an advanced human civilization. Basically.
Maybe so. I think that they had to soft reboot it because it killed everybody.
Because of the bad movie before.
Yeah.
How do you keep this going?
Like the prequels versus Force Awakens.
You at least got to kind of tell people we're going to reset it and
forget it.
So totally speculative, which maybe we should say for the in between. Is that what Abrams is going to do with the next Star Wars?
Oh, let's definitely talk about that because I'm really interested.
He's going to have to pull some of what Rian Johnson did back a little bit. He's got to pull some of what happened back.
I'd like to take a moment in this podcast.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a praying man, but I'm going to pray. Please, Jeebus. Let Mr. Abrams know that Rian Johnson sucked, and let him fix everything that was deemed unfixable. Amen.
He's gonna do it. I mean, that's all.
Help me, Jeebus.
I mean, if he can reboot Star Trek. So
it's like them SWAT wars. I love that movie.
So when Lewis, Dr. Dickson, gives his entire speech, we only really have one cutaway to Cornelius and Zero. We do spend a lot of time with him having to deliver that line. There's just one cutaway with their reaction. When they cut back to Zero and Cornelius again, which we get Cornelius saying, "May I say something personal?" She stands. Cornelius is standing and Zero is seated. They lit the shit out of their faces. Zira and Cornelius both are bright lit. They went out of the way to make sure that she's got light bouncing off of her face for this moment.
I noticed that too. There are a couple moments like that.
Even when she's seated, like they were definitely lighting that up.
Well, let's make
There are moments later too. Don't let me forget when I'm going to at least jump to when we get to the Senate type stuff. I want to talk about lighting. Don't let me forget that.
This was very, 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 very obvious that they were making sure that she was lit for this moment, particularly because you would not see that kind of natural light shining on somebody that brightly.
Well, it's also jarring. Not natural lighting. I remember that too. It's very obvious.
I mean, Cornelius at least looks like he's being lit from overhead with the zoo infirmary lights, and she definitely has light coming up off her to almost a distraction. But it's because she stands to deliver the line, and the light stays on her as she stands too. It's really fascinating. So I wonder if that was an attempt to bring something to the line that she delivers, right? She says, "May I say something personal?"
Which shows how smart she is, because she said, "May I say something personal?" instead of "Can I say something
God
personal?"
knows if Sean had been in that moment, he would.
I would
if she
stand-
said, "Can I shoot?" I don't know. Can
She's
you?
so smart. She's so smart. She says it correctly.
Well, and she says, "I like you."
Which
Yeah.
makes no sense to me, because from her point of view, all he's done is test her and have her friend killed.
And she was mad not a minute earlier, or was it this minute? She was super pissed about the gorilla.
like 2 minutes earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, just super pissed.
Which-
and all of a sudden she goes,
I guess
like
in movie
you."
time, maybe it was like 20 minutes earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
But it makes it a very odd choice too with Kim Hunter's reaction, because now I understand that she gets this makeup and she knows that I have to go wide-eyed to scrunchy faced. But her reaction of "I like you" doesn't fit with Milo just dying. Even if Milo died 2 days ago, it doesn't fit.
He's done nothing to ingratiate himself to
No.
her.
You know what it honestly made me think of? It honestly made me think of her Taylor crush.
Yeah?
It honestly made me think of, "I like you.
She's into
God,
bestiality,
She
baby.
loves her some humans.
Will you give me a kiss?" Like
into bestiality.
the sudden switch was so a little jarring.
Right.
And we can talk about it more in the next minute because it kind of continues on the theme a little bit more.
Right.
But it was just like a what?
Yeah.
I needed more personal dialogue between her and Dickson to feel that.
Yeah, that was a
connection.
big 180.
I do, we even talked about it with Beneath that you almost kind of wish they would allow the moments to play instead of just going, "Let's get the story and click."
Right.
With this, I wish after the death of Milo, we would have had a beat. We would have had something where they're alone so they could sit in their sorrow before this moment occurred.
Or Dickson not be quite so bumbling in this moment, and being sympathetic to them would allow her to open up more.
That's true.
Would allow him being sympathetic to her.
Yeah, and then we had the moment, and correct me if I'm wrong, the minute ends with kind of the Cornelius even liking them too.
That starts the next minute.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
so
the next minute.
we're wrapping this into an idea that we're acknowledging we like people. Now, we've had the implied relations of Stevie and Dickson being the mirror opposite of Cornelius and Zira. For them now to acknowledge that in the "I like you twos," and I know that's coming. Again, Milo just died. When somebody that is my friend, especially that I've escaped something traumatic, we will find out, but we know this. We know from the events of the last film, boom.
Well, okay.
They blast off in a spaceship. They experience something traumatic. They come here. He's died. And suddenly they're like, "Oh, let's have a dinner party together."
I'll say this without talking about future minutes. Let's just take this minute as is. Is she playing him as a psychiatrist?
Oh, that's true.
I like you.
Yeah.
I want you on my side.
So, I respect you and what you know in pop culture and comic book and storytelling, and I think you're seeing that potential. I don't think it's implied in this script. I think you're seeing the potential that could be there, but I don't see her playing anybody.
But I'm saying, if we're just taking up to this moment right now, just this moment, if you walked away from the scene only having heard her say, "I like you," I'm like, wait a minute. 60 seconds ago, they just had a relationship with the fact that they're both psychiatrists. Is she manipulating the situation? And she had a 180 in terms of her grief over Milo and the death, her anger at humans.
I didn't see it that way.
Well,
But it's interesting you say that.
I'm just speculating. I'm speculating. And I feel
Right.
like I'm somewhat influenced by later minutes.
Yeah. Right.
But if I'm just taking that one moment, "I like you,"
Yeah.
is it manipulative?
I could see
Is
that.
she now playing him?
Because it's such a character change so quickly.
Right.
Yeah, I think if I'd seen Zira do anything but her heart on her sleeve prior to this in the previous two films, I might believe that she's playing somebody. I don't think I don't know it as a character that she plays anybody.
That's a really good point. That's really good. We're talking specifically about Zira and her, how she works. She is not that manipulative. Everything is hard on her sleeve. You're right. Yeah.
It is 100%, kiss Taylor and want to hump your brains out, but
But still,
that may be the only sleeve aspect that she actually is just keeping her